Hello there, guys, and welcome back to my channel for another transfer news special, because that's what we're going to talk about all summer long, really. We still haven't announced, or we still haven't really seen Pochettino be our manager. Of course, we announced it, but we're still waiting for everything. It will be July 1st, but we're waiting on that. We're still waiting on Nkunku's announcement. Now we're all of a sudden playing international football again. Germany yesterday drawing 3-3 against Ukraine. Havertz scoring, Mudryk scoring, even though it was more of an own goal. But yeah, it's all kicking off. It's kind of weird because the season's over, but things are still happening. Under 20s World Cup just finished. Got under 21s Euros coming up. It's a bit weird. And also, more drama at PSG. Who would have thought? I mean, they are basically doing a bigger clear out than we are. Like, will they have any players left next season? Who knows? It's a bit crazy. Let's just get it out of the way. I know the title says, could Chelsea buy Mbappe? No, we can't. But, you know, game's the game. You need to put it on the title and on the thumbnail, all sorts of business. It is what it is. But, yeah, no, we're not buying Mbappe. we're clearly not. But I do still want to talk about that drama over there, because obviously it could still affect everything that happens around Chelsea. Because, I mean, there was rumors for Kai Havertz going to Real Madrid. Obviously, that has seem to be off for a couple of days already anyway. But, I mean, if they get Mbappe, there's even less of a chance they get Havertz. But also, that means PSG needs someone. So could Havertz end up there or whatever else? Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff, a lot of ins and outs. Pice, I'll start with you because you weren't on the last stream. First of all, thank you for coming back on. I appreciate it very much. How would you summarize the last couple of days? I'm not asking you to summarize all pieces of news, but has it gotten a bit more kind of busy, a bit more info going on, or is it kind of still a bit dead since that first few days after the season finished?
Still a bit dead, to be honest with you. I think, the window opens officially midnight tonight, so hopefully things will start picking up. But yeah, it has been quite dead. I think there's a few meetings scheduled, obviously, between different clubs, but, definitely things going on in the background, but there's not much been pushed to the media lately, unfortunately.
There you go. Ollie, I'll come to you. Thank you for coming on as well. Appreciate it very much. What do you make of that drama happening at PSG? Again, like I say, I think all four of us are probably aware enough that there is no realistic chance that we will get Mbappe, even if a few Chelsea fans kind of got their hopes up, or, well, I wouldn't even say hopes. I think they just started dreaming for a second. Last night when everyone was like, it could be swooping and everything. What do you make of that, though? Like, how long has Mbappe been at PSG for? I can't remember what year they signed him from Monaco, but I swear there hasn't been a single year without drama since then. And my question
is... it follows him wherever it goes, doesn't it?
Exactly. But I still don't understand why he signed his last contract. Now, I understand, obviously, huge money and everything else and a lot of power, but seemingly nothing happened. Like, he didn't do anything with his power. There wasn't any success that came from it, other than, sure, they won Ligue 1, but that for PSG isn't exactly difficult. So what do you make of that? Like, do you think it could kind of kickstart the striker market in Europe if Benzema leaving Real Madrid hasn't already done that anyway?
You know what? I think it does, actually, because I think, and it kind of hinges around PSG and Real Madrid a little bit, because of, obviously, with Benzema and Mbappe both, planning, at least this summer so far, to leave their clubs. And so there's great opportunities there. We know that Chelsea are in the market for a striker. Of course, Benzema's already moved to Saudi, so that's not going to happen. And as you rightly said at the top of the show, we're almost certainly not going to get Mbappe. But what I think it might do is it might just allow for a little bit more movement in the striker market. For example, if for whatever reason Real Madrid get if Real Madrid get Mbappe, that means they won't go for Kane. Kane might go somewhere else. We might still get Osimhen. I think what it kind of confirms to me is that Chelsea will probably end up with an elite striker this summer regardless, at this point. So I guess whoever it is, welcome. And whoever it's not, whoever we bought is better than you.
Yeah, no, exactly. Fair play. I mean, let's bloody hope so, because if I go by the last few years, usually whoever we didn't buy is better than whoever we did buy. But that is its own separate issue. Charlie, I'll come to you. Similar question. And by the way, Ricky, great, but let's also hit the like button if we don't want Mbappe. Like, let's not just make it exclusive to if we want Mbappe, please. But yeah, similar question, really. Not are you expecting us to sign Mbappe, but do you think it will kickstart the striker market, especially also for us on the one hand, I guess, in a potentially positive way, but on the other hand, also in a potentially negative way, because PSG also needing a striker puts another big club on the market that is in search for one. Now, sure, it might take Madrid out of it if they just go for Mbappe, but how do you see that one developing? And what do you really make of that whole drama at PSG anyway? Like, I'll bring something up on screen in a second, but it's just, like I say, when is there not drama with Mbappe and PSG? Like, it's just, he's like, it's not his boyhood club, but he's from Paris. How can you create this much drama all of the time, my days?
It's just par for the course. Every summer we have this conversation. Is Mbappe going to go to Real Madrid? Is he not? You know, he's going to go to Real Madrid at some point, and ultimately he's got more power than PSG in at this point. If he wants to go, he's going. Simple as that. When he signed that contract that they gave him, that was like he was basically. I mean, he might as well be the owner. Not quite to that extent, but close. You know, he had a massive say on things in the club, and ultimately, whatever PSG say they want to keep him, whatever. If he wants to go, he's going. It's as simple as that. Does it make a difference to the striker market? I don't necessarily think so. PSG needed a striker anyway. They need to replace Messi. I'm not saying Messi was a centre forward, but they needed a striker anyway because obviously Ekitike, who the young guy that they had, has not done particularly well, and they don't really have a centre forward. Neymar's future's up in the air as well, so they do need to go and sign someone at centre forward. So Mbappe potentially going to Real Madrid this summer doesn't suddenly put them into the striker market race. They were already in that position anyway. In terms of does it make a difference to Chelsea? I think it probably does in the sense that Real Madrid probably didn't bank on Mbappe being possible this summer. Their plan was always to go for him in 2024 as a free agent. But then again, PSG maintain they absolutely don't want to lose him for free, in which case he has to go this summer. But I think it doesn't. I think what it does do for Real Madrid is it changes them going for Kane because they won't sign Kane and Mbappe. I don't think this necessarily rules them completely out of Kai Havertz, but I think it makes their need for Havertz probably slightly less. Because if they did get Mbappe, they probably
I think it's mainly that they won't have the funds for Havertz rather than that they won't need him.
The negotiation will be tough for sure. And, you know, especially in the fact that we know Havertz isn't a world beater, they'd really haggle over the price for him in that case.
But you look at it though, right? And let's say obviously Benzema's gone. Let's say Mbappe goes to Madrid this summer. He replaces Benzema. So you've got Mbappe down the middle, and then you've got Vinicius one side and Rodrigo the other side. You've got Brahim Diaz, who's gone back after 3 years on loan at AC Milan. He takes Marco Asensio's place in the squad, but then they still need someone to replace Eden Hazard as a squad member. So maybe they still go for Kai Havertz. I don't really know, but I think. I'm not sure, but I think it does affect us in a way where Madrid's need for Havertz if they get Mbappe is suddenly far less.
Yeah, I wonder if Mbappe is actually the Hazard replacement, and Havertz would then be the Benzema replacement, because that's kind of a little closer to where they play. You know, Mbappe prefers the left-hand side.
Does Mbappe actually prefer the left-hand side? Because I swear when obviously Messi, Neymar and Mbappe were at PSG, I think, and PSG don't even have another striker. So, like, I swear for the last 2 years, Mbappe has played up front pretty much every game for PSG, hasn't he?
I think he does prefer the left, and I think he tries to play off, at least like being like the left striker in a two, like he does for France. Yeah. But, you know, I don't know necessarily fully.
That's the issue for Madrid, isn't it? Because you have Vinicius. And then, like, you know, Vinicius, in my opinion, is also one of the best players in the world. And also, as young as he is, you're not going to make Vinicius change position. So, if Mbappe, to me, if they have both, you need to play Mbappe up front and leave Vinicius on the left. Because otherwise, like, it just wouldn't really make sense to me, in my opinion. It's a weird one. I mean, like Charlie says, they need Havertz this then, absolutely. That's without a doubt. But like I say, they've just signed Jude Bellingham for over 100 million euros, obviously with potential add-ons, but they're not relevant for right now. But apparently PSG want like 150 million if they leave, if, you know, they sell him now. And that's kind of what I want to get on. Like, obviously, retail. Go on.
So I think it's a good deal, 150 million euros for arguably the best player on the planet.
It's attainable.
It's not difficult. I was also sitting here and say it's not difficult when we're talking about 150 million pounds. But considering they rejected 200 million euros from Real Madrid before he signed this current 2-year deal with an option for a third, 150 million euros, Madrid would be thinking, well, we've got that. I always think with Madrid, the Mbappe money has been there. Like, I don't think that would suddenly be eating into a separate fund of money. I think the Mbappe money has always been there. And they will have that money to spend. It's just whether they want to try and get him on a free or they get him this summer. But I think 150 million euros, when you see some of the prices going being banded about for players now, like for someone that's got 24 years of age and possibly the best player in the world at this point in time. Yes, he's got 1 year left on the contract, but that's an absolute steal. When you think Eden Hazard was over 100 million with 1 year left, Mbappe's way better than Hazard ever was. So, like, I think that's a great deal, 150 million. I know it sounds mad. But
do you know what? It's because it's actually realistically attainable. Any massive club would be able to pick up Mbappe for that money. You know, if they plan their finances right. It's not like when, you know, PSG signed Neymar, for example, over 200 million euros, and everyone went, well, like no one was ever going to match that. This is a possibility for a certain few elite clubs to actually be able to pick up Mbappe if they think it's realistic and they want to try.
Exactly, and I think there's so much interesting to it as well, because you see how many players seem to apparently be leaving City, like Bernardo Silva's leaving, Gundogan's leaving. Obviously, that's a very different position, but could City all of a sudden swoop in? Because I think City, in my opinion, is the only club that could make Mbappe think, I could just go to Madrid later and go win everything for a few years. You know,
well,
obviously,
just play off of Haaland
Madrid,
and play like players are two. Play off Haaland, you know, playing up top. He sort of
or just play Mbappe properly off the left, I guess. Yeah,
or play him off the left instead of Grealish, I suppose. It's certainly possible. The only thing with Mbappe is I also think he's probably got enough of an ego that he knows wherever he goes, he needs to be like the main guy. And I'm not sure at City he would be. You know, you got KDB, you got Haaland as well. So that's the only thing is like, if you actually look at maybe. We know that he doesn't have the smallest ego. If he's got to be the main guy, that would put him off.
It's the perfect time to go to Madrid, isn't it? Benzema's just gone. You go straight in and you're the new main man. Like
new striker, new number 9 for Real Madrid. Yeah. People don't tend to turn that down.
No, they don't. But that's my only question mark. And I'll go to you for this, Pice, because I personally, I know PSG are saying there's no chance that he ends up leaving for free. I still think Mbappe stays at PSG for another year and leaves for free next year. Because, like Charlie touched on earlier, Mbappe is the one that holds all the power. Mbappe is the one that has a contract. What are PSG going to do? Put him on the bench? No chance. Do you know what I mean? Especially if they don't get the money for him. What are they going to do? Like, you know?
And they'll get an enormous signing on fee for whoever he signs for if he's out of contract as well. Which is, you know, so even more what he'd be
going to be like, especially right now with Real Madrid. Like, yeah, of course, Benzema just left, and I guess they kind of need someone instantly. But in a way, what difference does it make for Mbappe if he waits another year and he gets a ginormous sign-on bonus? The wages that Real Madrid can offer him if he joins on a free, rather than them having to pay 150 million for him, is hugely different. So
could definitely happen.
Exactly. So I still think that that's personally what's going to happen, and I can bring up Mbappe's tweet about it, which he put out last night, where he basically said it's all lies. At the same time, the bigger it is, the more it passes. I've already said that I will continue next season at PSG, where I'm very happy. He just chooses not to extend his contract. And to be honest, he also has every right to do that. And I always find it a bit strange that it's almost like clubs give out 5, 6, whatever year contracts. But in a way, they don't. In a way, you always let 1 year less than the contract you're giving out, essentially, because
it's 2 really if you want to sell someone with like decent, like with the value, you know, because we all know at 1 year people tend to get cheaper because of the fear of it being 0. So
exactly that. So it's kind of strange, but especially Mbappe with the power that he does have there, especially with already Messi leaving and Neymar probably leaving and so many others leaving as well. And sure, they've got some replacements in it. Bernardo Silva's apparently going there and Asensio, but come on, Asensio ain't replaced none of those guys. Let's be honest now. So, Pies, what do you think of this one? I mean, do you even care much about what happens to Mbappe? Do you think it affects the situation for Chelsea? Not necessarily with specifically Mbappe, but just, you know, because the European market is getting affected, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I don't really care about this, to be honest with you. Mbappe wants to move every single summer. You know, there's always a drama. I'm not surprised that.
Or does he? Because he says he doesn't.
No, of course he does. Of course he wants to go to Real Madrid. You know, he's just saying in the public that he's not the bad guy. You know, I'm sure he did what he did. But yeah, I think Mbappe will move this summer to Real Madrid. I think eventually, like, if he doesn't sign a new deal, because that's what PSG want, right? I think PSG will have a big falling out with him, and then they'll sell him. There's only one club he's going to, in my opinion, and that's Real Madrid. The only other club I could see is what you guys mentioned, is Man City. And if he goes to Man City, I mean, there's probably not even a point watching now, to be honest with you, with Haaland. But if they had Mbappe, I think I might move league and just honestly, we can't let that happen.
Do we not think there's a chance of him going to Man United? Because they will have the new Qatari owners.
I'm thinking about this, but I don't think it's feasible personally. But I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, they don't get the Qataris as well. So there's a lot of like situations that need to add up for him to go to Man United, and I think he's been destined to be a Real Madrid Galactico. I think the same with Haaland. Haaland is destined to go to Real Madrid at some point in his career. And I just think with Mbappe already being there a few seasons, I think he could definitely go to Real Madrid now.
I just still don't see how anyone's putting Vinicius, Mbappe, and Haaland in one team. Personally, I just don't see how you do that. Sorry,
yeah, you just try.
But I feel like that will end up like Madrid in the early 2000s, where they have such a huge squad full of stars, where they don't win anything because it gets too much.
I think you can't not win anything with that team.
They did when they had Beckham and Ronaldo and Figo and.
Listen, if you have Mbappe, if you have Mbappe and Haaland up front, if you don't like win at least a double, like you're making you're doing something wrong.
Absolutely, and that's what they did in 2004-ish times. Like it was crazy. How can you have Arne, Ronaldo, Raul, and Beckham and Figo and all the best players in the world realistically at the time? I'm not sure. Had he left again then? I don't know.
No, I don't know.
But they did. Obviously, they won the Champions League in 2002, but then they had this spell from then until the later 2000s where they didn't win nothing. They barely won any league titles. They didn't win any Champions League titles until 2014 again. Thinking about it now, about Real Madrid, the fact that they didn't win a Champions League between 2002 and 2014 is insane. When you think
they went almost over a decade without winning a Champions League, and you'd never think that, but it was just down to the strength of the teams at the time. I guess Barcelona were in their heyday. Yeah, they were arguably the strongest they've ever been at that point. So maybe that's part of it.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has to be. It has to be. But yeah, Peter, no, we are not insane. Mbappe is not coming to us. But like I say, game's the game. It needs to.
Newcastle don't have the peas to buy Mbappe. Whoever's put that in the chat, Newcastle do not have the facilities for that at all.
I mean, they might have the cash in the bank, but not anything else.
FFP. I know it's ironic to talk about this as Chelsea fans, but FFP is a thing, and their spending limit is
especially now that they're in Europe, they're actually affected by it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess let's leave the Mbappe stuff aside for now because, I mean, from his statement we had his tweet up as well, but here he says he have never discussed any contract renewal with PSG. Well, yeah, that's the point. The board has been informed since July 15th, 2022 of my decision not to extend beyond 2024, and the letter sent was only meant to confirm what I already told them. It seems a bit like that Messi at Barcelona situation, but again, we'll just have to wait and see what happens. I still feel like he'll just end up going for free because if Mbappe didn't care that much about money, he wouldn't have signed that new PSG contract 2 years ago. So that makes me think he's just going to force them to let him go on a free next year and bank all the money Madrid have ever had.
The one thing I will say about Mbappe and the very rare possibility of him coming to Chelsea is it's not totally financially infeasible. Because we're already going for someone like Osimhen or Kane, right? Who's going to be over 100 million euros anyway. Yeah. If you don't do that and then go for Haaland, go for Mbappe. I know the wages will be really high, but they'll be high for any elite striker. So, the only thing that stops him coming to us is obviously no Champions League football, really. And, because I think other teams
completely out of this.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think they didn't Bowley say that we're not looking at it at the moment, basically. So it probably means this summer, certainly.
Yeah, it's exactly. That's what I was talking about. Sources have apparently confirmed that Chelsea are not working on Mbappe. They're working on other things and do not intend to do crazy things. Although because obviously the news over the last couple of days was that now with Pochettino being more involved, the Pochettino's influence is kind of letting a bit less news out, which in my opinion is a good thing, as much as for us fans and in particular Pice, that's maybe means it's a bit more dead. But in my opinion, it's much better. We needed to drastically and immediately stop every single bit of news being public constantly. Like it was a serious issue, in my opinion. So someone said, "Oh yeah, this is just means we're doing things quietly under Poch." But I don't think Mbappe was that happy with Poch anyway. So us having Poch arguably makes it even less likely that we're going to get. Why do I have these messages open here anyway? Let's close these, even though some person with the same name as me messaged me. But yeah, I guess that's enough Mbappe stuff. We move on to some other talk and I want to highlight this one because we're talking about crazy money here, and I'm not quite sure on the reliability of this source. Pice, you will be able to tell me now. But Al-Hilal tried to convince Lukaku in a meeting yesterday. Yearly wages of 71.4 million euros was mentioned. Now, on the one hand, I'm like, you're making less than Benzema and Kante. On the other hand, 71.4 million for him. For Lukaku. He should pay you 71 million to pay for you, really, with how dreadful he is. But a lot of people on Twitter have been talking about this the last couple of days. So, Pice, first of all, is this news to take seriously at all? But also, do you agree with a few people that I've seen on Twitter that are saying that Saudi Arabia basically could be saving our asses this summer a little bit? Because we are having issues with, especially these big players, Koulibaly we'll get to as well, but your Bamiyangs, your Koulibalys, your Lukaku are on huge wages that we might or might not want to get rid of. But Saudi Arabia will pay everyone well. So could they kind of save us a little bit in that sense? Like China did a few years ago when they all of a sudden bought all our deadwood players like your Oscar, they gave us what, 60 odd million? Or how much did they offer us for Diego Costa? I know we didn't end up selling him to China, but China's offers for Diego Costa, in my opinion, made us get more from Atletico for Diego Costa. If China wasn't involved, we would have had to sell him for much cheaper in my books. But yeah, what do you make of the whole Saudi Arabia situation? And again, is there any truth to this, you reckon, Post?
I mean, there should be. I mean, he's a good source for Belgian news. It's a very reliable Belgian journalist. So I think, this meeting is well known that it happened. I think it was in Paris, a few of the sources were saying. And also, like, what I found interesting was that, that picture went around the other day of Todd Bowley in Saudi Arabia sitting with those people. One of them was the Al Hilal president, which is like, this kind of adds up now, doesn't it? So I reckon they talked about Lukaku there. And this is what I like about, Bowley, to be fair. He's not afraid of getting in there and helping out with contacts and stuff like that. I think he did quite a good job in the summer that he was in charge, obviously, mainly the sporting directors now. But I think if this does come to fruition, that'll be really good. But I do think he's going to stay at Inter Milan. I think we'll agree something with them. There's a meeting scheduled this week. Don't quite exactly know the day, but it's very soon, where we're going to discuss, Onana. I think Inter Milan really want Koulibaly, sorry, and also like Chalobah's on their list, and I think they're also asking about Loftus-Cheek. So there's a lot to discuss in that meeting. So hopefully something comes of that. That'd be really good. But yeah, I think in terms of the whole Saudi saving us thing, I think maybe they'll save us from Aubameyang and Ziyech, but if they want Lukaku, then they need to give us a fee. And the thing is with the Saudi clubs is they don't do the fees; they just do the huge wages. So,
I wonder why that is, by the way. Why?
Yeah. I don't know, because they offer stupid money and wages. So I don't know why they wouldn't offer a transfer fee, but that's how they're doing things at the moment. They're kind of targeting these stars that are a little bit older that they don't have to pay crazy money for, and then they're just putting all the money into them as the investment rather than the club they're speaking to. So
yeah, I think that's what it is. They're mainly targeting free agents as kind of the strategy. And that's why they're able to pay, those wages that are so high. But it is a bit different when you've got players who are still under contract. You need something for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. But at the same time, it's sure, being free agents helps them pay this huge wages. But it's Saudi Arabia. They have basically unlimited money. Because they're in Saudi Arabia, they're not restricted by any UEFA financial rules. They don't have to abide by any financial rules. They can just spend however much flip they want. So I don't fully understand why they would be hesitant to pay transfer fees. Don't really know, but maybe also part of it is the whole signing on fees, which obviously all these players as free agents want. I don't really know. Charlie, Lukaku, what do you make of that one? Obviously his priority seems to be Inter Milan, but we are talking about so many players at Inter Milan. We'll get to that in more detail in a second. Pice just touched on Koulibaly, Chalobah, Loftus-Cheek. I'm bro, you don't even have the money for Lukaku. How about you focus on that first, right? Before we talk about any other players, come to us with an offer for Lukaku, and otherwise you could get straight in the bin. Because that's what I'm a little bit confused about. Obviously, the Inter Milan bosses and stuff, they always keep talking about, yeah, Lukaku wants to stay. But no one seems to be talking about whether Milan actually want to keep him. Like, yeah, they would like him on a loan. But other than on a loan, do they actually want him? Because, I mean, first of all, he's dreadful. Second of all, he cost them a Champions League final. Third of all, he's on huge wages. So unless he takes a wage cut or they get him on another loan, do they even want him? And mind you, he's sat on the bench. Now, Edin Dzeko is 37 years old, so maybe that changes next season. I don't know what's happening with Dzeko. Will he leave? Will he stay? I don't know. But it's still, the whole Lukaku thing is still strange to me. I still can't be sure where he's going to end up. Sure, initially I was thinking, yeah, maybe on loan at Inter again, but in an ideal world, Inter were only paying half of his wages last year already. That still means over 150k on our wage books. Like, if there is a serious offer from Saudi Arabia, again, we don't know because so far they're only doing the free agents. But if there is a serious offer, I don't know how much control we have over it. But if Inter don't give him a valid option, I think Lukaku will prefer to go to Saudi Arabia than he will coming back to us. But also, yeah, we've talked about Osimhen and stuff for PSG, but could Lukaku be an option for PSG?
Maybe. I think ultimately, like with this Saudi stuff, is they're going to be the only teams that are going to offer that we can get. Basically, they're going to be the teams that we can get the most money for Lukaku from. It's as simple as that. They'll offer the highest transfer fee because outside of Saudi and Inter Milan, I don't think there's any market for Lukaku right now. That's the reality of the situation. There's no market for him. Like the whole thing's been a complete disaster. You know, in essence, we paid Inter Milan €100 million for a 1-year loan, and then we're just giving them back to them. So
and now we still pay half of his wages now,
and we still pay half the. So they've got a great.
It's
deal.
the worst deal in history of football. Honestly.
Yeah, they've got a great deal there. And look, obviously, he doesn't want to be at Chelsea. We know that. Inter Milan a chance in their luck. The only way any loan deal back to Inter Milan makes any sense at all is if there's an obligation to buy at the end of it, because otherwise we're just getting mugged off and we're wasting our time. You know, there has to be an obligation to buy at the end of the loan deal. Otherwise, you think, well, we can't be doing
that. If
that.
they took him on loan and paid all of his wages, I'd be perfectly happy with that. But they're not going to. It's the problem.
No, they're not going to. Of course they're not. They couldn't afford to pay all of his wages before. Their finance haven't got any better. So, yeah.
I mean, the Champions League final will help a bit financially, but
yeah,
not
of course. And like they'll sell it. They'll probably sell Onana to us for £50 million, which will help them a bit there as well. But I mean, ultimately, I think basically Lukaku wants to stay and probably play in Europe somewhere. If it's not Inter Milan, would he want to play anywhere else in Italy? I don't really know. Is there a market for him elsewhere in Italy? I'm not sure. But yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what we can do here because we can't force him to go to Saudi Arabia. You know, he's not like the other guys where we've seen, you know, they're free agents. Fine. We haven't seen Saudi pay any transfer fees for any big players yet.
No.
What would they be prepared to offer? You'd like to think, as I said, it would be more than what Inter Milan would offer. It would be more than anyone else would potentially offer. You would like to think. I mean, what even is the market value of Lukaku right now? £40 million? I mean,
I think anything over 40, and we are close enough to making a profit on him from the amortization. I think.
Yeah. I think we could probably get that from Saudi.
So, Ollie, you know much more about this than I do, but how could it be a profit though? Like we still spent 100 million on him.
Yeah, it's about how it appears on the books, rather than how it appears.
So you're saying profit from now on, but still the minus for the last 2 years, basically.
Yeah, kind of. So it kind of depends because you can sort of pay out of what someone's contract is worth when someone leaves a club, you know, and so there's some more complicated business to it. But generally speaking, we could sort of make a sort of official on the books profit per year in his fee potentially. So you know, I don't know if anyone can pull that kind of weird financial finagling, it's Bowley and Co. I think.
Yeah, it's a weird one. This whole I'm not expert in all of this because obviously when you sell a player, it's on your book straight away, but then you still amortize it for the initial length of the deal. So like we signed Lukaku on a 5-year deal 2 years ago, so now we're paying 20-odd million on the books per year for him essentially without wages, just transfer fee. So obviously if you make 40 now, I guess that would help it, but then we're getting all the 40 on the books now and still have to pay the 20 on the books next year. So I don't really know how it works.
Like I say, it kind of like, so it helps kind of it essentially. So, you know, whenever you're paying over time, but whenever you're receiving money, you're receiving it all at once. Exactly. And so that helps you balance things out over time.
Yeah, which is kind of, I'm not really sure who decided that that's how it would work in football. It's kind of like, surely it would be better if it was just like
some economist boffin who's smarter than us four, I think.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, but it's only beneficial for the payers. It's like, yeah, so anyways, it's a weird one. Also, Lee said here, Steven Gerrard will be the new Leicester manager. I thought he just took the job in Saudi Arabia. I saw
he's trolling, I think.
He's not going to be the new Leicester manager.
But like, has he not been confirmed as a Saudi manager of some club there?
No, I think he might be close to that. He's been pictured out in Saudi, but I don't know. I
thought he was holding the shout and everything.
No, I don't think so. No, I haven't seen that.
I mean, they might. No, they are edited. Okay, yeah, there are some pictures of him, but they are edited pictures. So, I mean, Pice, do you know anything about what Gerrard's doing?
No, he was spotted out there with one of the clubs, but he's not like signed anything yet. I don't think.
All right, fair dues. Let me bring up the next one, and Pice, you kind of mentioned it already anyways. Initially from Di Matteo, but then also confirmed by Fabrizio. This one is just a nicer looking tweet, so I'm bringing this one up. Inter Milan are interested in Koulibaly, and according to Fabrizio, he's even a priority for Inter Milan. And like you just said, there will be a meeting in London. Inter also want information on Chalobah and Loftus-Cheek after seemingly Loftus-Cheek to AC Milan has fallen through, which is rather sad, because I would have much rather seen him go to AC Milan than Inter. But what do we make of this one? I know, Pice, when we did the whole keep and sell and stuff tier list a couple of weeks ago, for you, Koulibaly was in the sell tier. For me, he wasn't. I'm still not the biggest fan of the idea, because I'm like, we're only signing 22-year-olds. And other than Thiago Silva, every not 22-year-old is leaving, I guess, and maybe Aspi, but he's the one we don't want to keep. So I'm like, yeah, I understand. And yeah, we have all these talented players, but experience is important as well. And if Thiago Silva doesn't play regularly, that means all of our centre backs are constantly 20 or 22. And this is just not like, I can just already see it. That will then be in March, and then we'll concede some stupid goals in some big games when we're fighting for top four. And then we will miss out on top four, and everyone will lose their shit, start slating players again, start slating Poch. And then I will sit here and say, well, I fucking told you so, because you need some experienced players. You can't just have a back four that are all 22 years old. It doesn't work like that. But at the same time,
can I play devil's advocate here?
Go on.
Well, there is also an argument to be said that if you're good enough, you're old enough. People, like we were talking about Mbappe, he's only 24, but one of the best players in the world. There's lots of players who we have on the books right now who are very young. You've got likes of Badiashile, for example. I think he's only 21 years old, Madueke and stuff. And these players certainly seem, at least in theory, to be good enough for Chelsea. But they're not all that, they're not very old. I think experience is important, but wisdom is more important. Experience does give you that, but some people have more of it by default. That's
a fair point. But at the same time,
Koulibaly also has shown absolutely no experience or leadership since he's joined. I think
in 1 year, like if you
I think he has a little bit, Marshall the back line when he was in the middle of a three, but other than that, it's very underwhelming.
He was brought here to make an instant impact, and he hasn't, so he needs to go. Simple as that.
It's hard to argue with that.
But also, where does he actually play?
I disagree with that. I just think it's very naive to think a player that's been in Italy for 10 years goes to the Prem and has no adaptation period. I think anyone, whether that's Vice or our directors or Bowley, anyone that thought someone that's been in one league for 10 years can just go to a more difficult league and instantly be fine is lying to themselves. Like that was.
I'm with you on that, but some players do that. Some
players do that. Absolutely, but they are the special skills of players, and
that's not the best players in the world that do that. Like ultimately,
he was ranked as one of the best defenders in the world. So
yeah, but it doesn't mean defenders, not best players. Big difference. Yeah. There's only a handful of best players in the world.
I think you look at it now, though, and I get your point that, obviously, experience and whatnot. But when's he going to play? We're going to play a back four. We're playing once a week. He's not going to play ahead of Badiashile. He's not going to play ahead of Levi Colwill most. No, he won't.
Of course he will. Because Potter picked him over Badiashile.
That's why he picked him over Badiashile. Because he shouldn't be playing over those two.
Yeah, but that's a different. Whether we think that or not, it's a different situation.
It's kind of a moot point, but Badiashile is injured.
Yeah, there he is. But surely, but then everyone's saying that Colwell's going to have a big role to play next season. Ultimately,
someone's going to have to miss out, is what
someone's going to have to miss out, and it's going to be between Koulibaly and it's going to be between Koulibaly and Chalobah for the ones that should go. Maybe, or
Both
I agree with that. I agree with that it should be between those two.
Look. Well, where I see it with Koulibaly is right. He's been signed probably 2 or 3 years too late. And for what he's been brought in to do, at 33, he's not really going to get any better as a player. This is kind of your lot. He's on massive money, and ultimately, he's not the future of the club. And that's the reality of the situation. So, unfortunately, whilst we're all delighted that we got a great deal, £33 million, and Napoli are really hard to deal with, De Laurentiis always drives a hard bargain. He's like the Italian Daniel Levy and whatnot. Actually, this one, we probably look back on it and think, yeah, this is a bit of a mistake. I don't like writing players off after one season. I don't. And I think players do deserve more than a season. But ultimately, when we're in a position that we're in now, is he 31? I thought he was 33. Maybe I've just completely made that up.
He's 31. He turns 32 in a week, though.
Right, I've got that wrong. So he's 30. So basically, he's 32.
He's not that old for a centre back. Look at Thiago Silva next to him. He's nearly 40.
No, he's not that old. But
he's nearly got a decade left in him, bro.
Oh yeah, possibly. But the problem we've got is that when's he going to play is one, and secondly, he's on massive wages as well. And if he's not playing, and you've got 200 grand a week plus sat on the bench doing nothing, it's not
I'll give you
ideal,
a different one now, though. We've just learned, like, Koulibaly is apparently on around 300k a week. I'm not sure how true that is, but that's always
I've
the
seen
number.
325.
Whichever exactly it is, around 300k. We just learned Inter cannot afford that. So even if he's a priority to them, let's be honest here, it will be a loan, and we will still pay some of his wages.
Or he won't
There's
go.
no way Milan
There's
take
no reason
Koulibaly unless he's willing to go back to 120k a week. And why would he? Is he a moron? Like, why would he do that? So he's not going to accept that. So that means it's going to be another loan, and then we're paying another 150 odd K for a player that's not even playing for us.
Al-Ittihad were in for him, though. Again, it's Saudi, coming in that might actually save us. Pies, maybe you can draw up, how legit that is. But
again,
I've
he's
seen
not
that
a
as
free
well.
agent, so.
But do you think, though, that there's potentially a situation, maybe, I'm just putting this out, I don't necessarily think it's going to happen or think we should do it, but do you think there's a situation where we could potentially loan Koulibaly out for a season, say to Inter Milan as part of a deal for whoever, and then we presume Thiago Silva is going to be his last season next season, and we bring Koulibaly back the following season, and he's like the main experienced centre-half at the club?
No,
that would be stupid, though, because then you just take another year off where he could adapt to the Prem. But you brought an important point up there, in my opinion, because Thiago Silva, yes, will be here next season, but will not be here the season after. I'm very sure of it.
Almost certainly.
As a player. So, and then what happens? We already know our ownership only by 22-year-olds. So that means the season after, Thiago Silva will be gone. And then we will buy another 22-year-old defender. And then we will literally have no one that's older than 23. And I know what Ollie said earlier in terms of if you're good enough, you're old enough, whatever it is. While I agree with that, to me, there is two different things in how good are you in terms of just ability, what can you turn up, and how good are you when the pressure's on. And we don't know how good Badiashile is when the pressure's on. We've been 10th all season when he's been here. There was no pressure for anything for anyone. Like, there's a big difference if we're fighting for top four or fighting for a title. That's when experience becomes a relevant thing. Like, that doesn't mean you're not good enough when you're not used to things. Like, even Erling Haaland, I'm not sure if any of you guys watched post-match interviews from the Champions League final, but even he was talking about how, in his opinion, it made a huge difference to their squad, the experience of losing the Champions League final against us. So experience plays a part. And why do you think City are winning everything? How many young players do they have in their squad? Think about it.
But I think
there's a reason why they win anything and we finish 12th. Like, you can't have a good squad, but if they're all 22, you're not going to do nothing.
No, but hang on, Lawrence, because we're all forgetting how very close Arsenal came to winning the league this season, and they had almost exclusively young players.
I agree.
Outside of a handful. Yeah, you could say that, but at the same time, like you say, it would only take the fortunes to go a slightly different way. But I just don't buy this narrative that it's absolutely impossible to win anything with young players.
I genuinely think it's impossible to win. Like, obviously there's limits to it, and I'm not saying you can't have a lot of young players, but I'm saying you can't have only young players.
Not only young players, but you're also forgetting, like, as the players are going to continue to play throughout the squad, I think people have to look at things in terms of relative experience as well, rather than an age, because you can look at players who have only hit the big time when they've turned 21, 22, and so they've only been playing at an elite level for a couple of years. But if a kid from the academy has been playing in the first team, say someone like Lewis Hall, since he was 18 years old, give it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or like 3 or 4 seasons, he'll be that age. He'll be 22.
I
But
agree.
he'll be good enough by then.
But the players that we have,
it's about that experience for the players we have. But
I agree. But the players that we have, Badiashile for Fofana, they're both already in their early 20s. They've just got their first France call up. So there's not that much experience. Fofana, while in England, had one great season at Leicester. The other one he spent injured. This season he spent mostly injured. And Badiashile was in a Monaco team fighting for nothing. So like these young players that we do have, they don't have this experience that you're talking about. Like they literally don't.
Played over 100 games for Monaco before he joined.
He played over 100 games for Monaco, sure, absolutely.
But
not fighting for nothing.
No, but that's irrelevant though. He's still got. I mean, I think it is though, because he's still got experience. Like, are we talking about experience as in just amount of games being played, or are we talking about experience in big moments, experience going for trophies, experience going for titles?
A mix of both, I would say.
Because I think those two things are different in terms of what Ollie said about Arsenal. Absolutely true, and I think they lacked experience in terms of experience in those situations. I'm not saying that I think the players, despite them being young, are experienced players, but they weren't experienced in those situations where they're going to try.
No, but they were though. They had Jesus, Jesus and Zinchenko.
Yeah, but I mean the bulk of the team though, like that's 2 players. Like the rest of them, no real experience of trying to win big stuff. And that's what I'm saying.
Everything here is a sliding scale about experience. It's like there's no way to definitively say one way or the other.
The 2 things are different though in terms of experience, being an experienced player, because you can, as you said, you can absolutely be an experienced player at 22 if you started your career in the first team at 17, 18. Absolutely, at 22 you can be experienced. But obviously, then there's the experience of having. Of knowing what it takes to win a title, knowing what it takes to win big games and win the big.
And
trophies.
I just know our fan base; they are not happy when we don't win anything. So then you can't go into. But the fans won't understand that when you don't have players experienced at that, there is a chance you have a chance to win something, whether that's a cup or make top 4, or I doubt we're going to fight.
Okay, but how many experienced players do you need then? Because it's somewhere between how many Arsenal have and how many City have.
I don't know. How many is it?
A handful. Okay.
4 or 5.
But like you say, it's like a sliding scale, right? So like you can be fine with 3, you can be fine with 7. Do you know what I mean? You can be fine
as well. We've got older players in the squad who aren't providing that leadership role. So that's what I'm saying is that like some players are better at leadership, better with experience 100%. Than others. So you've got someone like, for example, someone like Aubameyang or Ziyech or Sterling in the squad who are all post 30. None of which are leaders in the squad, none of which are going to be staying here long term, none of which are really going to be like the future of the club. Whereas you've on the other hand, extreme example, but you've got someone like Reece James who knows what it takes to win. So like it's it's not necessarily always the case that young players versus old players are always going to be less experienced and less good at, like, say, winning titles. It's just, I agree. It's just different based on player to player.
And in an ideal world, I wouldn't be keeping like someone like Koulibaly necessarily to be that experienced. In an ideal world, those guys would be 28 and not 31, nearly turning 32. But the problem is our squad is what it is. Koulibaly is one of the only ones left that we can have that have some experience, because Kovacic is already gone, Kante's already gone, Jorginho has already left. So like all the experienced players and the slightly older players that we have, they all either have left or are leaving. And one other thing I'd like to mention, and then we can move on from here. Like, obviously, it's fine to have different opinions as well. It's like I said, Thiago Silva is 39. Fofana is extremely injury prone. So then what? And then, like, I know Pai said, you don't need 5 centre-backs, and then, okay, maybe have a 5th backup. But imagine Thiago Silva is just, 39. Maybe at some point he will get an injury due to age. And then imagine Fofana misses another 6 months. And then we have Badiashile and Colwell, and that's it. And maybe Chalobah. For what, 4-5 months? Again, like, is that a position we want to be in?
Well, you're forgetting other positions in the squad. I know Reece is injury prone, but he can play right centre back. You got Cucurella who can play left centre back. It doesn't look like he's going anywhere.
But not in the back.
I don't want none of this 3 at the back nonsense again next season. We need to play a 4, man.
I agree, and that's my point, because I'm like, we've spent the last 2 seasons with so many injuries. I just do not think we can go into the season. Yeah, we want a massive squad clear out, but the last thing we need is having a squad so small that if we have a lot of injuries again, that we can barely field the team. And that's why it just
makes me laugh though, because people say, "Oh, we need a squad clear out," until the players start. And then everyone gets upset.
I never thought we needed one at centre back personally. Like, we needed one in other areas of the field, but not at centre back. Like,
but we do need to get rid of 1 centre back minimum. You can't have 6.
Yeah, because you add Colwell to it.
Yeah.
So
And-
in my
and
opinion,
he's
get
gonna
rid of
stay.
Chalobah.
So
Now,
one of
sure,
them
if it's impossible to get rid of Chalobah for some odd reason, then sure, get rid of Koulibaly. And if you get a great offer for him and someone actually pays all of his wages, then I'm more inclined to agree with that.
I mean, I would rather
Currently, I
keep
can't sit
Koulibaly
here and-
than I would rather keep Koulibaly than Chalobah personally. Like you say, the experience is there is a factor there in it.
This
But
is such. Sorry, but this is such planning on what we don't know. Like it could go two ways. Like if we keep 5 centre backs and it's one of them's Koulibaly and Koulibaly plays over Colwill, and Badiashile and Colwill only sit in and share about a little bit of game time, then Colwill could push to leave next summer because he wouldn't be like promised that pathway.
and that's why these discussions matter, because where it ends up, it actually really affects some of the other players in the team.
Yeah, but there's also what Lauren said. Like, if we go in with 4 and one of them gets injured, we've got 3 centre backs for a back 4. Then we have to switch. So it's like, what risk do you take? I would actually rather keep, and this is why Koulibaly is a must sell, because I think Chalobah is more than happy. Well, not more than happy. Obviously, every player wants to play, but if we have 5 and one of them's Chalobah is like the 5th guy, he can get through that for another season, right? And at least we got back up there. Whereas if Koulibaly is the 5th, I feel like he's just going to get into the team somehow, just based on how as.
But then you run into what Laurenz is
would
saying is then the last centre back in the squad is what, 23 instead of 30, 31. So that, and then you're getting into Laurenz's argument.
How much better is Koulibaly than Chalobah at this point in time?
Chalobah's better than Koulibaly.
Exactly.
No. That's sorry, Pies. That's wrong.
No,
Chalobah had a better season than Koulibaly. Koulibaly is not worse than Chalobah because he had one worse season. That's not how football works.
Chalobah had a better season last season than Koulibaly. Koulibaly's had the better career.
Koulibaly has made so many mistakes last season.
Koulibaly had a worse season than Chalobah, but that does not mean Koulibaly's a worse player than Chalobah.
Who's better right now, Ziyech or Madueke?
Madueke is way better than Ziyech right now.
Madueke, yeah.
Yeah, see, that's what I would say.
But you would say Ziyech has had a better career.
That's not comparable.
Koulibaly's had a better career for sure than Chalobah, but right now, Chalobah's better than him. Chalobah's better than Koulibaly right now. That's right now.
If you ask me which one I want in a,
say Koulibaly has
if
had
you
a
ask me
worse
which
season.
one I want in a back line, I want Chalobah.
I'd prefer Koulibaly.
He's not bad.
Well, he's made more mistakes this season.
Yeah, it's just he's just repping the Italian league, you know.
And I'm not disagreeing with that either. But we're talking about next season, and I'm like, okay, he has a full preseason, is settled in London. If you asked me right now, and if I had to put money on who would have a better season, Koulibaly or Chalobah next season, I put all my money on Koulibaly being that guy. I would personally feel quite confident Koulibaly would actually have a really good season next season if he stayed. Now he might not stay, and that's not.
Do you
up to
really
me.
think so? Like, yeah. Only because,
Yeah,
like, if you look in that specific scenario, you're looking at a 32-year-old who's no longer in his prime, playing in a very physical league where he's already made a lot of mistakes, versus a young player who is actually in his physical prime, in his playing, arguably reaching his playing prime, you know, who's been in the Premier League and at Chelsea for a long time. I'm not so sure.
Maybe one centre-back ever who wasn't in their prime in their early 30s. Every centre-back is at their best in their early 30s.
But what I'm saying is, right,
whether that's Company, John Terry, every centre-back.
But on Koulibaly, though, is it right that if he stays, right, is it right that we give him minutes over Colwill and Badiashile, who are the future? I know we can't just solely think about the future, but is it not best use to give Colwill and Badiashile minutes? Isn't that why we signed them, to give them minutes? That's why Colwell's coming back, on the premise that he's a part of the plans and he's going to play. There's only one space and there's going to be 3 people going for it: Koulibaly, Badiashile, and Colwill. Surely, in the long run, yes, I know he's 31 and he can obviously do better in the Premier League, and you think you'd have a better season. But surely, it's better use of our time to give more minutes to Badiashile and Colwill and develop those as players, because they're probably going to go on and be a better players than Koulibaly has been, and they're going to be a much bigger part of the club in the future going forward. So whilst, look, I wouldn't hate it if Koulibaly stayed, surely it makes more sense to give Badiashile and Colwill those minutes rather than Koulibaly.
Yeah, he's right. Charlie's right.
While I agree with that, it all depends on the expectations going into the season. If we're going into the season expecting to develop our young players to be better in 1 and 2 years' time, Sure. If we're going into the season like Pice usually is, top 4 is a minimum and a trophy is a minimum, then I disagree with that. Because then you're not better off. Because if that's your expectation, you can't spend your time only developing players. Because those two you don't develop players and win things at the same time. That doesn't, like, it's one or the other.
Yeah, but our young players are better than
Chelsea have not developed.
Wait, so Laurenz, are you saying Koulibaly in the squad next season is more likely to produce winning trophies in top 4 than if we had Colwill?
No.
I would actually agree with that.
So what's the point in keeping him then? If I don't get it, because like you're basically,
I'm not deciding between Koulibaly and Colwill though.
I'm deciding between Koulibaly and Colwill. But you're basically saying Colwill, Fofana, Badiashile, right, and say Silva. You're saying 3 of those guys need to be developed. Yeah, but if we keep Koulibaly, we're more likely to get top 4 on a trophy. Right?
No, I think that the general premise that you go into the season with, saying like Charlie said, you're better off giving that time to young players, trying to develop them. If that is the premise going into the season, that is counterintuitive premise to winning something. Like it is, the whole starting mentality is different if you're going into the season planning to develop young players compared to planning to win something.
Again, younger players can be better than older players.
But haven't we seen Badiashile come in January from Monaco, 22 years of age, and done way better in 6 months than Koulibaly's done in a whole year with way less experience? Absolutely, he has.
Also, many people had. I personally, and I really rate Badiashile, but I think a lot of our fans have jumped the gun way too quickly on judging he's an amazing centre-back. He had a great 6 months. Let's see how great the guy actually is.
Okay, but Koulibaly's had a bad whole season.
Sure, no, absolutely agree. I'm not disagreeing with any of those things. And like I say, if we get a decent offer and someone actually wants to transfer him permanently, talk about it, no problem. But what we have on screen now is Inter Milan being interested. They already have one of our players on over 300k and then refusing to pay all of his wages. That's why we still have to pay half of them. And before
this will not happen for Inter. No chance.
What?
Unless it's a straight swap.
Yeah, like, unless it's a swap, Inter can't afford it. If they can't afford to pay Lukaku's wages, they're not paying anything close to what Koulibaly's on. That's why I was saying he's had a look out in our.
If he's not taking a wage cut, then he's gonna stay anyway, unless he goes on loan and we pay some of the wages. And rather than sending him on loan and we pay some of the wages, that would be a bad idea, in my opinion. Because
he seems the type to want to stay. He seems the type to be determined to do better next season.
Exactly. Unlike Mr. Colwill, who seems to be begging Brighton to sign him.
But you know what will happen, though? Koulibaly stays, right? And he plays, and people will be having an absolute meltdown that he's getting minutes over Colwill and Badiashile.
That's if he doesn't play well.
Rightly so, by the way. Very rightly so.
But even if he does play well, it's still like...
But then that same argument can be made for Thiago Silva, and no one's made that argument.
Yeah, because he's performed to an exceptional level.
Still left centre back, so.
Yeah, and there's that also. But
Koulibaly can play on both sides in the back four. It doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what, if Koulibaly is right side and only Colwill or Badiashile play on the left, I say keep him. But if he's on the left, if he's part of that Colwill and Badiashile thing, he's got to go. He can't take minutes.
And I absolutely see where you're coming from with that. I don't even disagree, and I understand that it's a bit of the issue. Let's be honest here. We all love Thiago Silva, but the issue here is Thiago Silva, really, because he's 39 and we know we're only getting one more year out of it. So what actually would be smartest is to get rid of Thiago Silva and keep Koulibaly. I mean, are we taking not in right now, but in terms of if you think in a year's time, if you let Koulibaly go now, Thiago Silva retires, then you need to buy someone. And then who we're going to buy? Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of where the issue is.
Are we taking it as a given that Poch is going to play Silva every week? Do we think that's going to happen?
I don't think that will happen.
No, I don't think so.
I think he's going to be much more of a mentor, custodian kind of role.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, look, we just presume he's going to play every week because he has done. But I mean, is there some like credence to an argument that maybe Poch doesn't play him every week, and we see more of a Fofana Badiashile partnership or a Fofana and Colwill partnership or whatever?
I think we have to wait for pre-season for that. That debate is pretty irrelevant right now until we see what he does in pre-season.
I think pre-season is the key, because like Pies is saying, it's irrelevant until we see who he actually wants to start with. Everyone will get a go in pre-season, but whoever looks the best will probably start. You know, outside of what is seen in training. So Yeah,
I
and
don't know,
that's the
man.
other thing that
amount of times
that
I've thought
Miguel
like
has
that
put on the
before.
screen here about, are we expecting to win something next season? Usually that would be great for that's the standard for Chelsea, but based on the season that we've had, I think a lot of fans would say that's not necessarily an attainable goal next season. No, you never know. Things happen.
And I agree,
always,
but I know the majority of the fan base won't, and that's where the issue
yeah,
comes.
but you've got to always go like
You always want to win. You should always expect to try
Yeah.
and win.
Yeah,
even
that's
if
the
you don't.
difference. Though, trying to win and expecting to win; those are not the same thing.
No, but
the thing
expecting
is
to
the
try
cups-
to win.
Yeah,
Like the cups are very like draw based as
The
well.
League
I think.
Cup is so attainable to get, and
Yeah,
people
like you
laugh
see
about
Man
it.
U-
except if you
what
get
was
drawn
Man
against
U's-
City
Man
away in the
U's
first
run?
round, like last year, then it's not.
Man U's run to the other final where they won against Newcastle was like the easiest cup run I've ever seen in my life.
And in the FA Cup, they were drawn at home every single round to the final as well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
But
I
that's
think
luck. That's you can't either expect that or not expect that. That's just, or you get it bad luck like us, and you are drawn to Man City away twice in the first round of the cup. So then it's like you can't control that. So that's why you can't go into the season. I expect us to win one of the cups because I'm like, well, if we get City away again, then I'm like, I can't sit there and expect us.
Yes,
to
but in the same way that you wouldn't say, I expect us to have a really good run, you wouldn't say, I expect us to draw City again. If you're going by everything else being equal and everything being average roughly in terms of like luck that you would get, like obviously in the season context matters and things change. That's why we then have to change our opinions from what we've said before. But going into a season, I don't think it's unrealistic to say we want to win a trophy.
No, absolutely not. That should always be the aim at this club. So absolutely next season, the aim should be to get back into Champions League football and to win a trophy. It doesn't mean we're good enough to. It doesn't mean that we will, but that has to be the aim. Like you always have to go into a season.
If that's how the club also want to approach the season, like Charlie's just said, then I don't think you can just go into the season and say, yeah, we're keeping Chalobah over Koulibaly, because that you don't go into a season expecting things like that if you've got a kindergarten.
No, but what I'm saying is though, like for me, I don't think there's much difference, and I think we can equally win trophies with next season with Chalobah playing at centre back as we could with Koulibaly. Chalobah was exceptional in the League Cup final under Thomas Tuchel. I think you can do it. Like,
of course, you can do it. You can.
It's also a bit of a nuanced argument in terms of like it's kind of irrelevant because I think you can do it with both. Like if it was Thiago Silva and Chalobah, it was Thiago Silva and Koulibaly. I'd be happy with either one of those partnerships in a final. I don't think it makes that much difference to us winning or losing the game. Defensively, we're pretty good. It's what we do at the other end of the pitch that's the big problem.
Okay. No, I hear that as well to some extent. And like Miguel says in the super chat, like it's I guess expecting to win what? Because we're not in Europe. I don't think anyone is expecting us to win the Premier League. I think in the league, we hope for a top 4 finish, realistically. And I guess the expectation is at least a top 6 finish, I suppose. And in the cups, 5,
isn't it really? I guess.
Oh yeah, top 5. I guess top 5 makes Champions League next season. That's true. That does make it more attainable, of course. And in the cups, to me, it's like I don't go. I know people think that differently. I'm just trying to say my point of view. From my point of view, I don't go into any season expecting to win a cup because you're purely reliant on the draw. So I'm just like, let's see what the draw gets, and each round of the draw, I'm like, I expect us to win that game or I don't. Like, rather than sitting there before the start of the season saying whether I expect to win that cup or not, because, well, I don't fucking know. We are not currently in a position where I can expect us to beat Man City. Everybody else, we stand a chance. So it's kind of so reliant on it that it just makes it. It just
you could say about any game though.
What I expect from the season, because I don't know.
Yeah, but you could say that about any game. To be fair, well, it's only the first game that's in front of us. Who knows what's going to happen next week? Players might be injured or out or whatever. But in terms of like hedging your bets, as Chelsea fans, I don't think it's unrealistic to say like we expect to be. Okay, so let me change it. We expect to be competing for at least one trophy, right? I don't think that's controversial. Whether that's a cup, whether that's a good cup run, maybe we do some wonders in the league somehow. I don't think that's a controversial thing, and I think most Chelsea fans.
I don't think it's controversial at all, and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying. I just think it's a pointless way of looking at it because you're so reliant on factors that you can't control. Yeah. That to me, it's like it's pointless for me to expect this.
But also, the point of sport is to win.
No, of course it is. Of course it is. That's what we're all here to try and do. And that's what I'm sat here saying, like, okay, if that's what we're trying to do and the ownerships think of it that way, like I can tell you one thing, Burnley ain't getting promoted to try and win. They're getting promoted to try and not get relegated, right? As much as football is the aim to win, they try to win each individual game.
That is a win for them, though. That is winning for them.
And at our level,
right now,
at our level, it's a bit different because we're not
right now. Top 5 is a win.
Yeah, well, exactly. It's just expectations. But I think, as I said, like you always go into the season wanting to win a trophy, and that should be the expectation at Chelsea. But there's also an acceptance, and there's also, it's also okay to realise that we're not at the required standards to hit our expectations at this point in time. But the expectations should always remain the same, regardless of how good we are. We just need
and then you draw a plan from how you get from one to the other. And that's how we get back to the top again.
I think what the fans think is actually quite irrelevant as well. Like, it all comes down to, Pochettino and what he does in his team talks. I think we can, we can be realistic or defeatist, however much you want to look at it, going into a game against Man City in the Cup. But under Graham Potter and Frank Lampard, there was never that belief in the players from minute kickoff. You're never going to beat City if you don't think you can beat them, as much as you might be, as much as we might sit here and go, oh yeah, you're deluded for thinking you can beat City. Like, we beat them 3 times in 2021. Like, why can't we beat them?
Don't you think there's a big difference in saying, because I think we can beat City, but I don't think I can expect us to beat Man City. Those are 2 different things. That doesn't mean we can't beat them, but I can't expect us to beat them. Yeah, no,
but you can't expect to beat anyone.
Sorry?
Yeah, but Laurenz, you were saying how this season we got drawn to twice to City. Then you're like, oh shit! If the players think like we do, then we're fucked anyway. That's
no. But because that changes the expectation. That doesn't mean we went into the City games not trying, not hoping to win, not thinking we can win. But it's different when we are drawn against the League 2 side. You go into
it is relevant
expecting
as well.
us to win comfortably. When we go away to Man City, you're not expecting us to win.
It is relevant though. I think it's relevant that the fans' voice is important because, well, one, so it's someone can hold the owners and the players to account when they have a bad season, like has happened this season. The other part of that is obviously making sure that Pochettino, we give enough support to the team that Pochettino can hit the ground running, because that's really important. Because if Poch doesn't hit the ground running in the league, everyone's going to turn on him instantly. And when they do that, there's no going back for him.
Exactly. The fans won't give him. Let's develop these young players. That's part of the issue. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised if Koulibaly stays, if Koulibaly starts over Colwell and Badiashile on the first day.
But we can't have it both ways, though. We can't be like, we can't be like the manager needs time to do things and we need to develop young players. And then when he does that and the results aren't great, we then turn his back and
our fans will do it.
Well, yeah, I know they will, but not everyone will. There'll be a large section.
But I think the question is as well as though there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it properly where you're playing young players and you're still winning consistently. Arsenal show that this season. They didn't get over the line, but next season they might. And that's only 1 year on more experience. So, when you look at it that way, it's not necessarily a bad plan. I'm just saying, what we're trying to build with our squad is not dissimilar to what they're doing, and they're doing quite well. And so I think it's not unreasonable to suggest that we can be expecting to challenge for trophies in the future. Right. Context happens, things change, whatever. But that should still be the expectation.
But initially they finished 8th when they started doing this.
But they won a trophy their first season with Arteta.
Sure. But why? Because they had an easy cup run. If we get an easy cup run, we can win the trophy. Sure.
Yeah, but that is sport.
We can win a trophy if we get a hard cup run as well. Which Chelsea,
we can. Absolutely. But it's less likely then. Just as simple as that, really.
I guess.
Yeah, you can say that for any team, though. Man City draw Real Madrid.
You can say that for every team. This applies to every team, in my books. I mean, Manchester United go into every season expecting to win something.
Yeah, but just because everything's random doesn't mean nothing matters.
No, I agree. I'm not trying. Maybe I'm putting it across the wrong way. I'm not trying to say it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that what I think is the issue is that the fans are expecting or wanting 2 things to happen at the same time, which are very difficult to pull off at the same time. Doesn't mean it's never been done before. Doesn't mean it's not possible to do, but it's very difficult to pull off developing a squad and being successful with the squad at the same time. There's not many examples in history of the sport where that has successfully worked. There's a few, but there's not many compared to how many fail.
I think based off last season, I'm not going to lie. I know as much as we go on about, Chelsea fans might turn on Poch. As long as it's not as bad as last season, as long as there's some improvement and we go up the table and we get European spots, I think, the fans will definitely not turn next season. I don't think there'll be a reason to either. He can't physically be worse than Potter.
Top 4, or I guess top 5 is the expectation.
Huh?
But didn't you say top 4 or 5 is the minimum?
Yeah, for me, yeah. But there's obviously circumstances. Like if we finish 6th or 7th and we're actually seeing, okay, the season after that, look, Mudryk's about to explode or Madueke is about, like, several players are about to explode. So let's give Poch another season, even if from the Europa League. Fine. Like, as long as there's progression, like that's fine. Like,
I agree with that.
When you talk about like developing players as well, saying like you can't develop players and win trophies at the same time. I think when you talk about developing players, if he actually develops these players, you're talking about Mudryk, Madueke, Enzo still, if he can get more forward numbers. Like if we're seeing, not quite like the full end product, right? But you can see progression from these players. Fans are going to be more happy anyway, because right now we're not really, Mudryk's a very, very raw player, but if he gets more goals next season, level-headed fans will look at that and
you
think,
can't exactly get less considering he scored none.
Okay, yeah. Could score an own goal.
But like, you know what I mean? Like if we see natural progression from the players, like level-headed fans will think, okay, that's only going to get better over time because look what Poch has done this season to him, and him. And that's what his background suggests. So that's what we hope will happen. And if that does happen, there's no reason why he should be sacked.
But there's also the side of things where if we come 6th or 7th, we had 4 managers last year and came 12th. This year we've had 1 manager with a whole squad that every season 1 game a week, and we've come 6th or 7th. So there are expectations because we are only going to be playing 1 game a week.
Do you know what?
That also only applies because remember under Conte, in that when we won the league with him with 1 game a season, we got knocked out in the League Cup 2nd round. Well, 3rd round, but 2nd round we were a part of, away at West Ham. So if we in both cups do quite well and go quite far, we will actually have a lot of midweek games as well. People forget that. I know Europe is out, but that's 6 group games, and this season it was 4 knockout games. That's just 10 games. But instead we got knocked out of both cups in the 1st round. You can add 4-5 games in each of those cups as well, and then you have your 10 games back. So it's not necessarily going to be that drastically different. It depends on how we do in the cups. One last thing I wanted to touch on that on player development before we get onto the goalkeeper thing here, and I just want to know if you think of player development the same way. So player development for me in a season, obviously on a training pitch, regardless of whether you play, but to me, focusing on young player development is. A young player is more likely to fluctuate in performance, to be less consistent. So then for me, when saying focusing on player development is keeping a young player in the squad, even when their performances go up and down. That's when I'm like, that's focusing on young player development. Sticking with them, even when they naturally, because they're young, will not be as consistent as someone that's a bit older, usually. Again, this is only rule of thumb. Of course, there's exceptions to everything. But on average, a younger player is more likely to be a bit more inconsistent and be great 1 game because we have very talented young players. So, of course, they're going to be great sometimes. But they will sometimes also make mistakes because they're young. That happens. That's natural. And to me, that's when we're going to see as the season goes on, whether Poch and the ownership with decided, do we focus on developing these guys? And does Badiashile, when he has a bad game, does he keep the spot and start every other game the next month later as well? Or the same goes for Colwell? Or do we then drop them? Because if we start dropping them again, then we're not focusing on young player development anyway. And that's my problem. That's what we've always done. Mudryk plays a bad game, dropped. Yeah, that's why he doesn't get better. That's why he's been here for 6 months and looked like he has got worse. Because
that's also a symptom of the fact our squad is too large because we've got a slightly less or apt replacement on the bench in every single position.
Which is where the problem comes.
Which is both a good thing and a bad thing. But yeah, I get what you're saying about player development. It's a totally valid thing to say, but it'll undoubtedly in the end it'll be down to Pochettino regardless.
Exactly. No, of course. But that's why I'm like, for those things, if we're going to keep dropping the players, maybe sometimes it's better to play more experienced players that you're going to drop less regularly because the whole player in, player out, that's in my opinion been a big part of our downfall over the last 3 seasons because Tuchel kept doing that, Lampard before they kept doing that, and now Potter kept doing it as well. We need to stop changing the team every week. And the more young players you have, the more likely a manager will feel inclined to make those changes.
I think the main issue with that, though, is that we just need the spine. If we can have a consistent spine throughout a season, it doesn't matter if you swap out other players in and out, actually. Okay. Not really, as long as you've got a strong spine, but we don't. which
But
is
other
why
than
it's
Enzo,
important
I
for us
don't know
to.
who the spine's going to be.
It's important for us to do good business in the transfer market
maybe
to
it
pick
might
up that
be.
spine that we
I
need.
mean, it might be Onana. It could be Onana, Silva, Enzo.
Yeah. Oh, of course, a goalie.
and
But
whatever. But
the
you
goalie
don't
was always
get-
Kepa this season as well. It still didn't help, did it?
No, but yeah, I mean, look, I think ultimately, like you don't want to be chopping and changing everything, but I do think like at the start of the season, maybe in the first 2 or 3 games, we could see a little bit of chopping and changing whilst he establishes what the best team is. And yes,
I feel like you should spend preseason doing that though.
Yeah,
Like,
but
I feel like
pre-season
on
games
day
are
one
different,
of
though, to the real ones.
of the season, you've got to have at least an idea of 8-9 players
Oh,
who
yeah,
you
bro,
We
definitely
won't
want
even
to
have
play.
half our signings done by the time preseason. Let's be honest. Like what? Are you expecting us to have Osimhen by July 1st? No chance. Like, let's be honest.
Well, that'll change.
Or any
later on.
striker. I think we'll go into next season having Havertz and Nkunku fighting for striker spot, but I'm being a bit pessimistic at the moment
fucking
because I
hell.
don't
I might
trust
just-
our directors at all.
I will collapse if that is the case, by the way.
Exactly, and that's what I'm concerned about. And that's why I'm like, oh, at least keep at least Koulibaly. But anyway, Price, I'll take it to you before I get the other guys' thoughts on the goalkeeper situation, because according to Matt Law, we'll have to wait and see how reliable he is this season. But Chelsea have identified Onana and Maignan as the top choices for new goalkeeper, but the prospect of Kepa being number 1 next season is also not ruled out. Yet if the prices for other targets deemed too high. What do we make of this? Especially Inter really want Koulibaly, but they also want Lukaku, apparently. But we want Onana. Apparently, we also want Lautaro Martinez, which, if Real Madrid get Mbappe, that makes that one a bit more likely, I suppose. Whether us fans want Lautaro Martinez, different story. But if Poch does, right? But what do we make of Onana? I will be honest, I did manage to see most of the Champions League final, but I couldn't watch it like full attention. I had to like kind of have it on the side. So I didn't, because I saw a lot of people raving about Onana, and I didn't really see that part. I saw him make a couple of saves, but I didn't have enough, I had to focus on other things. So I couldn't just see how great he was with the ball on his feet and stuff. Do people worry at all? And I think, was it you, Ollie, that tweeted that yesterday, that a goalkeeper first has to save shots and second has to be good with the ball at his feet?
Yeah, I did say that. I said listen, I don't want to sound like some kind of like Philistine, right, who only thinks about things in the old ways. But, and while it is really important these days for goalkeepers to be a part of build-up and to be able to pass the ball around, I think at times we're seeing that being prioritized at the detriment of shot stopping.
Exactly, because I think people
ultimately
now
a keeper's got to use their
how
arms
good Kepa
first.
actually is at this anyway.
Listen, if you stuck Kepa in midfield, would anyone actually see any difference in the way he played? Probably not. And that's what I mean in terms of these keepers.
Better than Gallagher.
Yeah, exactly. But it'd be better with their feet, but not actually all that good at their one job. And ultimately, in your terms of longevity as a goalkeeper, eventually your legs will leave you because that's just part of being a sportsman in elite sport. Be later than everyone else, but it will still happen. So it's important to still be good with your arms at that point when your legs go as well.
And I'm not trying to say Onana isn't good at saving shots either, but his biggest strength is most certainly with his feet. So, Pies, what's your point of view on this? Obviously, I think most of us were like, oh yeah, Maignan is probably our first choice, and then Onana if we can't get Maignan type thing. Now, Onana obviously looked great in the Champions League final, as much as City didn't have that many chances and shots that he could have done much about. I still firmly believe if Kepa concedes the goal that Onana conceded from Rodri, half the Chelsea fan base will blame Kepa because why didn't he move? Why was he just stood still?
I would have done it for sure.
No. Did you say you would or you wouldn't?
Yeah, I would have done it.
See, that's what I'm saying. So it's like, I still don't really know. I would still much prefer Maignan, I think. But at the same time, I'm still sat here where I'm like, I don't really have even Maignan. I'm like, how good are you going to be? Like I think you're better on the line, but you're a bit worse with the ball at your feet. So
yeah,
I struggle with it, and I'm like, and I also struggle with defining how much we should be willing to pay for these guys. So where do you sit on all of this, Pies? And especially now that Matt Law said there's still a chance that Kepa ends up being the number 1 if both Onana and Maignan, I guess, are outpriced or, their clubs ask too much money.
I think it's a really interesting debate because, like, if Kepa stays as number 1, like, there's definitely going to be moments next season where we're like, holy shit, he's cost us a game and that sort of stuff. But I don't think overall he's done horrendous this season. I just think the fan base with Kepa, it's kind of, I think it's actually kind of like how I am a little bit of Havertz. I'm just a little bit fed up. Like, like you've been here a few seasons, you're not hit the ceiling that you were put out to be by everyone, and the former clubs as well. Because obviously, we triggered his release clause, but still he was. I'm pretty sure like he was rated as like one of the best young goalkeepers in the world, Kepa. So, like, I think him staying as number one, like if
it depends on who the number two would be, I guess. Then, but
Onana and Maignan like deemed too expensive. Like if that happens, I don't know.
But if they're deemed too expensive, like who isn't?
Yeah,
right.
I mean, if Maignan is too expensive and that's why we go for Onana, fair enough, I guess. If
that's the thing. With all our targets, we got to be looking at 1, 2, and then after that, nobody else. Because there's no point getting your third, fourth, fifth, sixth choice.
No, I think Kepa staying as number one. Obviously, the only positive that would be allocating more funds towards the midfield and attack. But at the same time, I would really like Onana. I think he's had 2 really long Champions League campaigns. I know he was out for a bit, but I think
over a year.
Yeah, but he's come back and it hasn't really affected him. Top clubs want him. And I think the thing with the ball at his feet, like honestly, I was watching the Champions League final. He's almost like he's too confident. Like genuinely, he
also gave it away in really dangerous positions.
He nearly made a massive error because he was too confident. But I think that's like Edison as well, Alisson, right? These guys make errors, but I think the pros that you do get is just it's like playing with an extra centre back, man. Like he was on the halfway line at some points. Honestly, he thinks he's Neuer, honestly, but
this, by the way, these super benefits that you get from your super brilliant goalkeeper with the ball at your feet that can play line breaking passes, that only works once your team has chemistry. If you have a whole new midfield, a whole new defense, and you're expecting the goalkeeper to play through balls to the midfielders. Yeah, you've got something coming for yourself because the midfielders won't know where Onana will pass the ball to. One preseason isn't going to be enough for them to know each other perfectly and understand what each other's going to do. I think that's another one of my concerns for expectations for next season. I'm like, we have a squad where 90% of them will have known each other less than a year.
Yeah, and especially with Onana as well. The second he's expecting someone to be somewhere and he launches a pass and maybe slightly mishits it or whatever, and it goes out of play, everyone will dive on him straight away.
Exactly.
Being like, he's not actually good with his feet. What's he doing? He's a donkey, useless bozo, all the rest of it. Whereas, that's one thing actually I think just needs to happen more in next season is that I think we need to be giving players and the coach more chances. I think rather than what Laurenz was saying earlier is the second a player has a bad game, bench him or, drop him. Say, listen, they had a bad game, cost us the game today, go again next game. If you have a bad game after that, well, maybe then we can talk about dropping you. Clearly, maybe there's some rough form going on there. But I think one game at the moment is, especially because we're going to be playing one game a week, it's just, it'd be silly to constantly chop and change.
Because then he might not be playing for 2 weeks after that, theoretically. So that's not helpful at all.
You hit like an international break at the wrong time. You don't play for like 3 games before it, 4 games afterwards. You're out for like months,
Yeah. I would want Onana here though. I think also it gives us that, experience. He's a little bit older. So, that covers Laurenz's aspect.
He's younger than Kepa though. He's 27.
Yep. Also, that clip of Onana talking to Martinez. If you search clips of Kepa picking players up after defeat, Kepa does the exact same thing. I'm just saying. Yeah. Like that whole clip of Onana talking to Martinez. Kepa does that all the same.
Look, Kepa's seen as a leader in the squad.
Kepa is more experienced than Onana. Let's be clear.
Yeah, Kepa's seen as a leader in the squad. He's been given the armband this season, for God's sake.
Yeah, but he's still been.
Has Onana actually won anything?
Yeah, he must have won Dutch leagues and shit with Ajax.
He's won two trophies this season with Inter, I think.
Oh yeah, Coppa Italia and the Italian Super Cup.
Yeah, but Super Cups doesn't count. Let's be honest. But yeah, no, he was won obviously loads with Ajax, but it's like Zohar Ziyech. We know.
No, I think he's a decent keeper. He is.
No,
good,
he's clear. Yeah.
And it represents an upgrade on what we've got. And absolutely, like, if that's the route we're going down, 50, 60 million euros, whatever it is, I think is a decent price to pay. Yes, Inter will make a huge profit on him because he only joined on a free transfer last summer. But ultimately, that's kind of...
Maybe that's good for them. Helps the relationship.
We've got to work one of our guys in the deal, though, for him. Because I think, if Bowley was in charge, he will work... Like, say Bowley was having this meeting, right, he'll work one of these guys in or something like that. I just don't know if our current sporting directors are going to be able to, do a really good deal. Like, we've not done any deals, so we don't know, if they're actually good negotiators or not yet. And I felt like Bowley was good at that. So as much as people tried to shit on him, so we'll see what happens. But 50 mil these days. I mean, Brentford want 40 mil for Raya. Like, who would you rather have? 50 mil on or 40 mil for Raya?
That's no brainer, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So just if we do have to pay the 50 mil, just pay it. Like, everyone's like, people think 50, 60 mil. Like, this is the market right now for any decent player. Like, So I think we should
apparently
we should also try to maybe put Mendy in the deal. See if they want Mendy. You know what I mean? He's not on huge wages, so. Like, try and do that.
Did Onana play either of those games, actually? Because obviously, didn't Handanovic play all their cup games? That'd be quite fun.
I don't know. I don't know.
No idea.
But he's obviously he went very far in the Champions League with Ajax, didn't he? He was obviously there starting
this season. He was really good
in the Champions League. So, he was really good in the final. And by the way, I heard someone say earlier, like, to the detriment of shot stopping, Onana is a good shot stopper as well. I've seen that. So. Yeah, he's not just going to come in.
That should be the number one thing. He should be a shot stopper.
Kepa is also a good shot stopper, except for long shots.
Then he's not a good shot stopper.
Laurenz, you rate Kepa way higher than like 90%.
Yeah, Loz, if you think you're really good at stopping bullets, and then someone shot you from like 50 yards away instead of shooting at you from like 10 yards away, you're not good at stopping bullets. It
depends on how far away from me that bullet is landing. Do you know what I mean? Like, if the ball's going top corner, I have more of an excuse for not getting there than if it's 2 meters next to me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what happens. Laurenz gets shot and goes, nobody saves those. Yeah. That's a worldie.
And I agree with that. But the one benefit Onana has, obviously, that he's quite a bit taller than Kepa, which is good. But yeah, which Raya wouldn't be. So that's why, like, I would jump out my window if we signed Raya to replace Kepa. That would be the stupidest thing I've ever heard of.
Well, the problem with Raya is it's just a lateral move. It's not an
even.
Upgrade.
He's worse, in my opinion.
Have you seen that we're apparently also in for Robert Sanchez from Brighton? He's
also worse than Kepa.
He's terrible.
But he's fallen off. He's fallen off a cliff because he was really good. And now Jason fucking steals in the team ahead of him quite like every single week. But this Onana deal, I think it, like, with the goalkeeping market the way it is, it's the obvious choice. It's at an very affordable price for what the market is at this day and age for a player of his quality. And we've also in a strong negotiating position because we have also got players that Inter Milan want, whether it's Mendy, Loftus-Cheek, Koulibaly, Chalobah. This should be a deal that should be easy to do.
The sporting directors should be sacked if they can't work something out with Onana and our players.
Bro, the sporting director should be sacked regardless.
Yeah, that's very true. But still. Like,
I do wonder if Bowley will give them, like, be like, try and make swap deals. That was my thing, but you can try and do it. Like, I wonder if he's encouraging that from the.
It's interesting though, isn't it? How, like, when Bowley was doing the deals, there weren't really any problems, and now these guys are doing the deals.
I told you like this. I told you that Bowley was a decent sporting director.
Maybe just get him in for the contract and just get him in for the negotiations, like, because
him and Ngali, they can
the
get.
Problem with Bowley is the picking of who he's trying to buy. Yeah. Once he's in the process of buying them, he's great at that.
Or let the sporting directors pick the players and then send Bowley in for the buying process.
But then they're not sporting directors; they're more like recruitment chiefs or something.
Maybe they need to be downgraded then.
They do.
Yeah, there you go. There was another bit of news the other day. We are working hard behind the scenes to sign Moises Caicedo. There was also Jacob Steinberg report, even though I can't really take him seriously anymore because he keeps saying different things to Fabrizio in terms of all details. So I'm like, how seriously can I take you anymore? But Pais, I'm not asking you to know anymore, but does this scream like, oh yeah, we're doing things a bit more quietly now that Pochettino is involved? Do you see us getting Caicedo? And obviously, you can't know for sure either. It's only your gut feeling as well as it is ours. But I still sit here, and maybe it's my pessimism from the season and the directors, but I just don't see us getting him. Like, I see us trying all summer to get him, and in the end, he ends up at Arsenal, and we have to buy our fifth choice centre mid option, and we will be miserable. And I'm like, we shouldn't have let Kovacic go. We shouldn't have let Jorginho go. And I'm like, brilliant. All these players we signed instead of way worse. That's what I'm concerned about. But are you concerned, or do you actually think we can pull this one off?
I mean, the more the days go on, I think it's less likely. But I don't know. Like, I actually think Arsenal, like, if Arsenal came in, like, I feel like we would actually like. I'm not saying we're not doing anything, but like I feel like it would be much quicker if Arsenal came in because we might be like, oh shit, like maybe we're not like progressing because Arsenal have not come in yet.
I think we're waiting for them. Do you think we're waiting?
We did say we'd match any bid. So maybe that's the idea, is that actually that we're letting Arsenal
I
go
think
first.
it's a stupid strategy though, because
I agree. That sounds dumb as hell.
Arsenal,
Just go get your
Caicedo
boy,
will choose
right?
Arsenal, so we need to get that done. But also, there's an element where like we could have already put a proposal to Brighton, and Brighton are like, oh, well, we want a bidding war, so we're waiting for Arsenal anyway. So they haven't replied to us, or just And also, like the Colwell thing is I have a feeling that's going to be extremely damaging to our chances because. If every time we ring them and we're like, okay, like we want to talk in for Caicedo, and they just mention Colwell, and we're like, oh no, we don't want to sell Colwell, then there's an impasse there.
Just say yes and say, we thought you meant Chalobah.
I think only Bowley could get away with that one, to be fair, because Paul and Stanley used to work at Brighton, so he knows.
Yeah.
So,
but he's also an idiot. So
here's what you do: you say Gallagher, but you say Chalobah, but you send Gallagher. There you go.
That works better, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, I can't remember where it was. I read it a couple of days ago. Post that obviously here, Fabrizio said clubs are waiting for Brighton to decide on the final price, which is also weird. I mean, fucking make your minds up, man. But there was also like some report said it like sometimes you need to wait for the timing of other clubs. Is this talking about Brighton replacing Caicedo? Because obviously they got Dahoud from Dortmund, but obviously they already lost McAllister. So if they're losing both of their centre mids, is it a case of also needing to wait until Brighton have a replacement, or at least chosen who they want as a replacement? Is this partly why nothing's happening? Because as much as there was the Jacob Steinberg report now that Arsenal are considering bidding, no one's really done anything in terms of Caicedo yet. So is maybe that's it, that Brighton is like, yeah, I mean, we can talk in a few weeks, just like let us figure out who we're replacing him with first or whatever. Like, do you see that at all being the case? Or why do you think nothing's happening? Because neither us nor Arsenal are doing something on him. Now, obviously, they're doing something on Rice, apparently, but why are we like, why? Do you know what I mean? Like, the only logical explanation would be that Brighton are like, yeah, we'll talk about it, but let us figure out our shit first. That would be the only reasonable explanation for why there's not been more already for me.
I still think they want a bidding war. I think they'll wait for other clubs to approach as well. So I think we could be waiting some time before, like other clubs, declare their hand or say, we're out of this, and then I think it will pick up. But I don't think it's to do with replacements, though, personally. I think it's more just really tough negotiation. And, like as much as I think, we could just say to them, like, we should just say, put, 70 mil down, see what happens. Like, at least release a bid to the public so we know, like, something's happening rather than leave us in the dark. Because I think that just causes, I mean, as much as it's good that, like, we're trying to keep stuff quiet, it's also extremely frustrating because, like, the online...
We're used to it not being quiet, so now it being quiet is a bad sign to us.
Like, the online people, like, such as myself and stuff like that, who like follow all the news and that sort of thing. Like, well, the fact that we're not hearing anything, like we have to just assume nothing, like, well, nothing big is like, we might be in talks, but nothing huge is happening to report. So it's like, but then, if there is like a bombshell, like in like 2 days time where we've, agreed a deal for Caicedo or something, then I'll think, okay, right, I should just calm down a bit now because obviously they are working hard. But how can you actually just trust?
We have to wait until something actually surprises us before we can say like they're trying to surprise us.
As much as like Fab saying, we're working behind the scenes on Caicedo, I don't fucking know if we are. You know what I mean? Like, what am I supposed to believe?
Yeah, see better than you hear, right?
It might be when Sandy's sitting in his office doodling.
Bro, exactly. It could just be club PR. Like, I'm not believing that. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, show me something, do something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
no, exactly. I mean, Charlie, what's your perspective? Do you see us getting Caicedo? Again, this is not anything to do with knowledge, more I'm asking your gut feeling, because I'm just really concerned if we don't. I keep saying to people, like, let's see if we even have a midfield at the start of the season, because I fear we might not.
I don't want to think about the prospect of us not getting him, because I've always maintained from the end of the season that we have to get one of Caicedo or Rice, because those are the two marquee names in midfield on the market this summer, and we have to get one of them. And we're not going to get Declan Rice, it looks like, unless we do some sort of a Mudryk Part 2 madness where we kind of hijack that, which at this point in time, it would be great, but it looks very unlikely at this point in time. Yeah. In which case, we have to get Caicedo, which is going to be a tough deal. we've got a good relationship with Brighton because we've done a lot of business with them
because we keep giving them all of our money,
giving them loads of fucking money, and whatnot. But yeah, look, we have. Do I think we're going to get Caicedo? I'm unsure. I would have to lean more towards no than yes, just because of the complexity of the deal. Brighton's insistence on Levi Colwill. How much money do they actually want? And also player preference. Ultimately, we could offer 80 million. Arsenal could offer 80 million. But ultimately, it's going to come down to the player to decide which club he wants to join. So
that's what worries me about us apparently just matching any bid Arsenal make, because
it might not come down to financials, though.
That's what I'm saying, because I'm like, no, we need to bid more than Arsenal. So Brighton tell Caicedo, no, you need to go where they bid more, because if it's choosing between us and Arsenal, why would you pick us over Arsenal right now? They're in the Champions League.
Then it's down to
they have a squad
wage
that's ready.
structure.
We don't even have a midfield.
The structure of the deal and all the rest of it. So
there's
still a lot to happen yet. Personally, I think we actually will get him. And the only reason I think we will get him is because we so dramatically decided not to go in for Ugarte. And we wouldn't have done that if we weren't confident about getting Caicedo.
That's true. That's true. Because that's another thing I was about to mention. Like, if we don't get him, and it's like Pi says, and they're right now, like, either dragging this out, waiting for a bidding war, we're fucked not getting him anyway. But not getting him in late July is even another quadruple times worse. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if we're not going to get him, we just need to find out as soon as possible we're not getting him.
That's what I'm
saying. And then we can
move
move on.
Right, Caicedo in the same team is so finished, bro. You don't even realize that is ridiculous.
It's a disgrace.
While having Odegaard as the third midfielder. Do you know what I mean?
We can't let this happen. Like, we have to sign him. We already missed out on Rice. We already missed out on Ugarte. We can't miss out on this guy. We literally.
But that's the thing, is I don't think we will, because we've deliberately decided for whatever reason not to go for Rice. We pulled out of going for Ugarte. Yeah, in that case, Caicedo is our number one target, and we know how we do pursue our number one targets. So.
But we do have to rely on the player preference as well, ever so slightly.
Ollie, I would say on how we pursue our targets. That was under when Bowley and Igbali.
That's true. Yeah, it might be slightly different now.
Like, even Igbali went and secured Mudryk on his fucking private jet and met I remember doing a tweet. Bowley literally, not a bit of Bowley. Igbali went to
Poland, didn't they?
He showed up at Shakhtar's hotel and said, to the president, I'm here, mate. Like, I'm bloody here to do it. Like, I don't know if Win Stanley's doing that.
Win Stanley.
I feel like if Win Stanley did that, they just close the door.
Yeah, but
go away.
I'm just scared, man. Like, I don't know. Like.
Yeah, I mean, I still wouldn't be shocked if Bowley and Igbali in like a couple of weeks' time realize these lot are a bunch of clowns. Turn up, they do it themselves, and sack Win Stanley.
Todd, fire up the jet.
Please take over. Like, I don't even care if
the
thing is though, like, I don't care if Win Stanley's involved. Just don't him and Stuart heading the deals just worries me, because there's no proof they can get anything done.
I think that's the thing. I think Caicedo is the absolute litmus test for that. They cannot fuck that up, and we cannot fuck that up. And if we do,
it's already fucked up Rice anyway, so it's already bad enough. By the way, I almost find it a little bit funny that we're not getting Rice, and I hope he's going to be so great for Arsenal, because all these weirdos over the last 3 years, they're like, no, do Rice, fuck Rice, he's shit. I just hope he's amazing and tears us a new one, honestly. Not us, but in terms of at Arsenal being really good. Because we could have just had him for 3 years, but no.
It was amazing at one point that actually it was almost possible for Mount, Rice and Jorginho to all have gone to Arsenal at one point.
Yeah, and they might still, but Jorginho will leave.
Yeah.
Which I do rate about Jorginho, by the way. Went to Arsenal, stopped them winning the league, and now leaves. Love it. Big fan. Exactly. But one last bit of news. Otherwise, it's been kind of smaller things. Obviously, there was the roundups, but we kind of spoke about most of the important bits already. According to Matt Law, Mykhailo Mudryk has actually made himself available for Ukraine's under-21s. He believes playing in the European Championship this summer, under-21s Euros, could help him recapture some form. Mauricio Pochettino is understood to be impressed. What do we think, boys? Ollie, do you think this would be a good thing? Do you think it would be more important to focus on pre-season with the whole new team and the new manager? Like, just to give you some dates, guys. So the under-21s Euros start on June 21st, so next week. And then the final of it would be on July 8th. Now, obviously, you'd have to expect Ukraine to go out before that. Let's be honest. I could go on the groups. Which group is Ukraine in? They're in a group with Croatia, Romania, and Spain. So there's a chance, I guess, they make the knockouts or they don't, I suppose. But he will still, because he hasn't really had much of a holiday now. They had a little break now, but if he goes, I guarantee they will give him 2 weeks off after that. And that means he won't join up with full preseason until like July 15th, if that. And then he's already missed 2 or 4 weeks or 5 weeks of preseason. And I personally, I'm not sure if that's worth it. But
I think it's a really good point to make. I think we also have to look at the content of like Mudryk's character in terms of like his hard work.
Yeah.
Because we all know he's a dedicated human being. You know, we've all seen it, how much he trains and how hard he works. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually didn't take a holiday. The fact that he's choosing to go and play more football right now would be an indicator of that anyway. I think he knows that he's not up to speed. Is basically what I think it is. You know, like because he came to us having not played that much football in the last 9 months or so because of the invasion. And you know, Shakhtar and stuff. So you might have a situation where actually he's trying to play himself back up to the fitness that he knows he will be, and playing competitive football even at under 21 level is probably better for that than playing friendlies in the USA or whatever. So I can see it.
Is it better than training?
That's the thing. So the question is like I think it's probably better for him individually. I don't know if it's better for the team, but we'll see. You know, like it might turn out to be nothing, and it might turn out to be really good, or you know, it might turn out to be terrible. We just don't know yet.
Yeah, sorry, I did have a bit of a Michael Owen moment. Yeah. But I was saying that they didn't come second or third. Yeah, I do apologize, but yeah, it's true. But yeah, I think Ollie, you also made a reasonable point actually in terms of because of the invasion, obviously them not actually playing. I guess there's also a chance that he just doesn't goes to the under 21s Euros and then doesn't take much of a break, maybe like a week.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like,
joins preseason.
The fact is, he's not played that much anyway. Like, you know, like I don't know if he in himself would feel like.
I mean, Lampard didn't play him anyway.
Right now.
Well, he hadn't played since he hadn't played when he joined us in January. He hadn't played any football since November. Yeah, and he's not played an awful lot. He's not played an awful lot for us this season either.
That's what I mean. So like, I think it's it's about kind of getting him up to like full speed ahead of next season.
If that's the scenario and he just won't miss preseason but still do the under 21 Euros, then I also understand why Poch is understood to be impressed by it, and why then I'd also be a fan.
I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah. No. Charlie, do you see it that way as well? And would it only be that way that you'd be happy with, or would you also be happy with him going to the under 21 Euros if he then did take a couple of weeks off a holiday and joined preseason late? Because then I'm not sure if I'd be a fan.
Yeah, obviously, like you know that Pochettino preseasons are notoriously pretty tough, and ideally you'd want to be there with the squads and everyone to do that and play a full part in it. But I could also see it where I don't know the exact date preseason starts, but let's say Ukraine get to only play the group stage. Well, that's 3 matches. And that's going to take, a week? And then he might have a week off. So he could probably still easily join up for the start of pre-season anyway. And there's also the trail of thought that actually he could still go out for the start of pre-season, even if he had 2 or 3 days of doing lighter work before joining in with the full work just for a small break. Then I still think that there's that possibility as well. But ultimately, I think it's going to come down to whatever the club thinks is best, whatever Pochettino thinks is best. Now, if Pochettino is happy for Mudryk to go and do that and join up a little bit later on, no problem. Or if he leaves it down to the player's decision, then that's also fine. I think there's kind of benefits to both sides. Ultimately, I personally don't really think it makes too much difference whether he goes or not. Again, you just don't want him missing too much of pre-season. But I think the whole reason he's made himself available is because he's not played that much football recently, and playing like 3 or 4 games or whatever it may be, it's going to be of more benefit to him than having, say, a week off or 2 weeks off. And then I don't think
it might make a difference. You never know.
Yeah, it could make a difference.
Unless he has a bad tournament. Then obviously could have the complete opposite effect and it ruins his confidence even.
And he could also get his leg broken in like 5 minutes in. But like you can't really look at it.
But that can happen.
You've got to look at it. Yeah, like you can look at. I think you got to look at it in terms of like opportunity and like what it's going to do for Mudryk for his time at Chelsea and also for his fitness. You know what I mean?
There you go. Pice, your thoughts on this? Would you prefer him to go to the under-21s, or would you rather he didn't? Or is it a case of if he joins preseason on time anyway, then yes, otherwise no?
I don't know. I think the other option is I wouldn't really care either way. To be fair, I think it would be good for him to play. I mean,
Pice only cares about transfers, not about playing.
I don't know. Like, it'd be good for him to play, but like, how much? Even if he does do really well, then like the difference in level might just like hit him straight away when he actually goes back to like senior football. So I think there's that side of it.
Good thing
as
our
well.
first preseason game is against Wrexham, so
I'd prefer him to join preseason. To be honest with you, I think be there on time. Get to know Poch from day one. Go from there. I think personally.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I would agree. At the same time, like I say, if he manages to do both, be on time for preseason and play the other 21 Euros. I'm all for it. At the same time, what if Ukraine all of a sudden make the final and he's played 7 games, he's been there until July 8th, and then we're like, oh fuck, he's not turned up to preseason until July 20th. Then we're like, well, this is backfired. You know what I mean? But yeah, who knows?
Yeah, but Matt Law also does say, like, in that tweet, he said like Pochettino's understood to be impressed, so maybe he's like okay with it and happy for him to do it.
Or maybe he knows, like Pochettino there knows something we don't in terms of like what his indications are after the tournament ends for Ukraine. Maybe he says, maybe Mudryk said to him, listen, I'm going to go and do this and then I'm going to come back for day one of preseason. Maybe that's why he's impressed.
Did that when he joined us, didn't he? He was with some USA tournament, CONCACAF, whatever it was. And he barely had a holiday and joined up with preseason for us as well. So obviously he was then new, and Mudryk isn't quite new now, but yeah. So if that's the case, I'm all for it, I suppose. Pice, otherwise, I don't think there's much news unless you tweeted something while we were streaming that I missed. I think that's pretty much all the important bits, isn't it?
Yep. It's been very quiet today.
Very good. I mean, very good in the sense of hopefully we are actually doing things behind the scene and not just doodling. That would be great. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's about time we round this one out. Please do follow all of my wonderful guests down in the description at all their respective socials. Obviously, you can see Ollie's on the screen, Ollie J. Carpenter for his personal Twitter, and at The Bridge Pod for his podcast, which is linked down in the description. Pice's website, as always, londonsfirst.com, as well as his Twitter. And of course, please do follow and subscribe to Charlie's YouTube channel. Link is down in the description. Blue Brother CFC, as he so brilliantly put there, so I can't get it wrong anymore now. Fantastic. And of course, his Twitter, CharliePatrick0 as well. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe. Forgot that I haven't told you this once today, so please be sure to subscribe. That'd be massively appreciated. Hit that like button for me. It really helps spread these streams out to more people, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys for watching. Up to Chelsea, upwards and onwards, and we'll see you next time.